The sun hadn't yet breached the ridges of the California hills, and the air was thick with the kind of silence only wilderness knows, an expectant hush that holds its breath before the first light. A thin mist rolled over the chaparral, wrapping the oaks and pines in a ghostly veil. The world was asleep, but one man was awake, camera in hand, heartbeat in rhythm with the earth itself. Ethan Morales had been out there for weeks. He knew every curve of these hills, every rustle in the underbrush, every echo of coyote song that carried through the night. But there was one presence that kept him coming back, a shadow with golden eyes and paws that could move soundlessly through gravel. Her name was Sierra. He had given her that name the first time he saw her, a mountain lion, sleek, powerful, and proud. Sierra was unlike any predator he had ever tracked. Most mountain lions vanished at the first scent of human, but Sierra, she lingered, observed, trusted in her own wild way. Ethan often joked to himself that she was watching him as much as he watched her. For nearly 3 weeks he had followed her trail, scattered tracks in the dust, the remains of a deer carcass under the junipers, claw marks on the trunk of an old pine. But recently, Sierra had been moving differently, slower, restless, searching for something. Ethan suspected she had lost her cubs. He'd heard faint cries on the wind days ago, then silence. That silence haunted him. He could sense her grief, though it was something the camera could never truly capture. There was something profoundly human in the way she wandered alone now, scanning the hills as if listening for voices that would never return. That morning, the chill cut deep. Ethan's breath clouded the lens as he adjusted focus on a distant ridge. He spotted her. Sierra's tawny coat blended into the brush perfectly, except for the faintest ripple of movement as she crept along a dry creek bed. She was heading toward the outskirts of a small rural neighborhood, a cluster of houses that backed right up to wild country. Ethan hesitated. Sierra had always kept to the wilderness. Why was she heading closer to people? He studied his camera, tracking her through the zoom lens as she crossed the boundary where wild land met manicured lawns. And then, movement. A flicker of orange under a porch. Ethan squinted. It wasn't a fox, not a raccoon. It was a house cat. A small domestic cat, fur like flames, tail swaying lazily as it trotted into the open. The absurdity of it almost made Ethan laugh out loud. He clicked his camera once. The shutter broke the silence like a whisper. Through the viewfinder, the two creatures stood facing each other. The mountain lion, queen of the hills, muscles coiled and ready, and the little cat, no bigger than Sierra's head, blinking up at her with innocent curiosity. Ethan's stomach tightened. He'd seen what mountain lions could do in a split second. One leap, one strike, and it would be over. He almost wanted to shout, to scare the cat back under the porch, but his instincts told him not to interfere. And then, something extraordinary happened. Sierra didn't pounce. She lowered her body slowly, gracefully, until her chest brushed the dirt. Her ears pricked forward, her tail swished once, twice, and then she made a sound. It wasn't a growl, it wasn't a hiss. It was a soft, low chuff, a sound mountain lions rarely make except to comfort their young. Ethan froze. The air seemed to still around him. His finger hovered on the shutter, trembling. He knew this was something rare, something no textbook or documentary could prepare him for. The orange cat, completely oblivious to the danger, meowed back, a small, delicate sound. Sierra tilted her head. She took one step forward, then another. Her massive paws pressed into the soil so gently they made no sound. She circled the cat slowly, lowering her head to sniff. The cat, bold and foolish, rubbed his side against Sierra's leg. Ethan could hardly breathe. Through the lens, he captured every frame, the muscles under Sierra's fur rippling, her whiskers twitching, her eyes softening in a way he had never seen in a predator. It was maternal. That was the only word that made sense. Sierra wasn't seeing prey. She was seeing memory. Maybe she smelled the faint sweetness of milk still on her fur. Maybe she heard a tone in that meow that reminded her of her cub's cries. Whatever it was, in that fragile moment, predator and prey no longer existed, only two creatures bound by something older and purer than instinct. Ethan's heart pounded so loudly, he worried it would give him away. He adjusted focus again, snapping more shots as Sierra bent low, touching her nose to the cat's back. The cat purred. The sound carried softly in the early morning air, a vibration of pure trust. Sierra blinked slowly, an almost human expression. Acceptance, confusion, maybe even comfort. The photographer's eyes burned. He didn't know why. Maybe because in the wilderness, tenderness is rare. And yet here it was, unmistakable. For a few endless minutes, the two simply existed together. The mountain lion, immense and regal, sitting beside the little orange cat like a mother beside her child. The rising sun bathed them both in gold. Ethan's camera clicked quietly, each photo freezing a miracle. Then, suddenly, Sierra's ears flicked. She lifted her head, alert. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The sound echoed through the valley, harsh and jarring. The spell was broken. Sierra turned sharply toward the hills. For one heartbeat, she glanced back at the cat, one last look, deep and lingering, and then vanished into the brush, her tawny form melting into shadow. The cat watched her go, tail twitching once, then wandered back toward the porch as if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. Ethan lowered his camera, his hands trembling. His pulse still thundered in his ears. He had just witnessed something that defied everything he thought he knew about predators. He sat there for a long time, the silence settling around him again, broken only by the hum of early morning insects and the distant call of a hawk. The world had gone back to normal, but Ethan knew he hadn't. When he returned to his small cabin later that morning, Ethan downloaded the images, one by one. As each frame appeared on the screen, his breath caught again. Sierra and the cat, side by side. Predator and pet. There was something holy about it, something that transcended nature photography. It wasn't just documentation anymore, it was a story. He stared at the last image, Sierra's golden eyes glinting softly in the dawn light, the cat's tiny frame pressed beside her, and felt tears sting his eyes. For all the years he had spent chasing wildness, waiting for that one perfect shot, he had never imagined it would come from an act of compassion. He titled the photo series Her Lost Cub. When he posted the images online weeks later, the internet erupted. Millions of people shared them, disbelieving, awestruck, moved. Headlines called it the most unlikely bond in the wild. Scientists debated, skeptics claimed it was staged, but those who looked closely, really looked, could see what Ethan had seen. The gentleness in Sierra's eyes wasn't something you could fake. Messages flooded Ethan's inbox from across the world. Parents wrote about showing the photos to their children, teaching them about empathy. Wildlife lovers called it a symbol of coexistence. Some even said it reminded them that grief isn't limited to humans, that perhaps animals too find small ways to heal. But for Ethan, it was simpler than all that. He knew what he had seen that morning. A mother who had lost everything, finding for one brief heartbeat the comfort she needed to keep going. He returned to the hills often after that. He would set up camp near the ridge where Sierra used to roam, hoping to catch another glimpse of her. Weeks passed. Tracks appeared now and then, fresh prints, sometimes two sets. Ethan liked to believe she had found another mate, maybe even started anew. Every dawn, he'd lift his camera and scan the horizon. Sometimes he thought he saw her shape in the mist, just beyond reach, always watching, always guarding. And sometimes, when the light hit the hills just right, he thought about the little orange cat, the innocent creature who had unknowingly stepped into the path of a predator and taught the world something about tenderness. Nature, Ethan realized, isn't only about survival, it's also about connection, about loss, love, and the strange, fragile beauty that bridges the two. One morning, almost a year after that encounter, he returned to the same rural neighborhood. The same porch stood there, though the old paint had begun to peel. The family who lived there told him the orange cat still came and went, though it preferred to nap under the porch in the mornings. Ethan smiled, thanked them, and walked toward the edge of the woods where Sierra had disappeared that day. He stood there for a long time, camera hanging at his side, feeling the whisper of wind through the pines. Then, faintly, so faintly he thought he imagined it, he heard it, a low, soft chuff echoing from the hills. Ethan closed his eyes and smiled. Somewhere out there, Sierra was still watching, still protecting, still remembering. And as the sun rose once more over the California hills, turning the mist to gold, Ethan lifted his camera, knowing he didn't need another photograph. He had already captured the wildest, gentlest truth of all.